Colorado Springs is not all rainbows and unicorns. If you can't handle these 7 things, you definitely want to avoid Colorado Springs.
That's right. Number 1 is growth. The city has grown like crazy. Over the last 10 years, we've had a 17% increase in population. With that comes all the challenges of growth, right? All the construction, like all the infrastructure challenges, all those things.
Speaking of growth, the number 2 thing, if you can't handle this, don't come here. And for me, it's construction.
Constant construction. You can see it right here. And I actually went into Plaza of the Rockies right next to us, right before we shot this video. There's construction going on in there.
Yeah.
It's literally everywhere. There's construction on I-25 every single day, on all the major thoroughfares, east, west. It's a headache sometimes, absolutely.
And I think, so like Sam said, so we're downtown Colorado Springs right now, right in front of the Pioneer Museum. It's a great little place to check out if you're coming in town to visit, if you live here, you got friends and family coming in town. We didn't even know it was under construction. And I think a lot of that goes to the point of so much of Colorado Springs has construction, you kind of lose track on what the heck is going on, honestly. Yeah. So it's road construction, building construction. There's a ton of new apartments getting built downtown, so you have to deal with that, parking and all that stuff whenever you're downtown. Like you mentioned, roadway, I-25's kind of done now, I would say.
For the most part, I think they're still gonna add like a few more like light sections in and things like that, and some median work, like I've seen some shoulder work going on. That Woodman right now is a pain in the butt to go east to west, east of Powers.
East of Powers, so Woodman Road is it's on the north side of town, northish side of town, and it's kind of one of the main east-west thoroughfares through town. Colorado Springs road's not really the best east to west, but that road is super busy with all the growth on the east side of town. So east of Powers Boulevard, ton of growth out there, and the road is, they're trying to kind of catch up infrastructure after the developments happen, which gets kind of frustrating, but for the most part, I would say the south side of town, not as much construction.
Well, except for I-25 around Fountain.
That's true, actually. Disregard that comment. Yeah. There's a lot of construction on the south end of town.
South Academy Boulevard and I-25, there's a ton of construction going on there. There's a backup and a slowdown there every single day.
Yep.
It's honestly pretty sketchy. I hate driving through that section.
It's like narrow lanes and all that stuff you hate. I-25 North, I know we're talking about I-25 a lot, but if you haven't been to Colorado Springs, you're just kind of checking it out. Major north-south thoroughfare. Obviously, the interstate goes right through town. So on the north side of town, they just finished up the I-25 expansion between here and Denver. So it's 3 lanes both ways the whole way, which is awesome. That was, man, what, like a 3-year project it seemed like?
Yeah, I think it might have been longer.
Maybe even longer than that, but they finally got that done. So that's definitely nice. But you still have, on the north side of town, Interquest, Northgate, and Voyager. Those interchanges off of I-25, ton of growth and new construction up there. They're building a big new amphitheater up there, outdoor amphitheater. It's gonna seat like 8,000 people, I think, or something like that. So that's where a lot of the commercial growth is. And then obviously with commercial growth, you get a lot of residential growth as well. So north end of town, construction, bleh. Downtown, huge pain right now. So I think that's kind of wraps it up with construction. There's just all around town, there's a lot of construction going on. I think most cities that are growing, obviously you're gonna have to deal with that no matter where you're at, unless you're moving to wherever. I always say Omaha, Nebraska. I don't know why I think of Omaha. Not much going on there, I guess. So unless you're moving to Omaha, probably construction there too, you're gonna have to deal with it in Colorado Springs. Not the worst thing, but hey, it's not the best thing either.
No. So number 4 is winter weather. We do get all 4 seasons here in Colorado. You heard that right. It does snow sometimes here. Our heaviest snow month is actually like March. Right? That's when we get the most precipitation in the form of snow. It can be a pain in the butt here for sure.
I think a lot of it depends on where you live too. So if you live in Colorado Springs, Sam, you live real close to downtown where we're at right now. It's a lot different here than what it is like up in Black Forest. So where I live, it's about 7,500 feet. So I would say we probably get twice the snow amount that you get here in town.
Usually,
something like that. Yeah, sometimes even more than that. Like you guys might get 6 inches and we might get like 20 inches. That doesn't happen a lot. I think the biggest thing takeaway for me, at least for Colorado Springs proper on winter weather, is really that, man, it doesn't, you're gonna get snowstorms, but it's not like I think a lot of people, when they think of Colorado, they're thinking of the mountains, the Summit County, the ski areas where it's just like, it's dumping all the time. That's not the case here in town.
No.
You have maybe, I would say, 2 or 3 big storms a year.
Yeah.
And then you'll have, you know, several other kind of light snowfalls throughout the year where maybe it's like a couple inches. But like we always tell people, it melts off fast because it's always sunny here. So the winter weather, it's not like it is in the Midwest. I think that's a big differentiator. I grew up in Ohio. So back there, man, I swear it gets cloudy in like October, like this time of year, and then it's cloudy until May, and the snow just comes and it sticks and it stays and it doesn't really go anywhere. Yeah. It's not the case here. Like, I don't know what the level of precipitation is snowfall-wise, but it doesn't feel nearly as bad here because it's so sunny all the time. But if you don't like winter weather at all,
you should probably avoid it. I will say,
should avoid it, Colorado, right?
The one thing that gets annoying for me in the wintertime is I really like a clean car. I know this is like totally like a silly, like insignificant thing, but I really like a clean car. And it's impossible to keep your car clean in the winter, inside or outside of the car, because it snows, it melts, it turns muddy, there's dirt on the roads, you got all the
terrible,
slush.
man.
Like, that might be like one of the more frustrating things about winter for me. That
first world problems.
The sun going down so early, that's another good point, man. We've got Pikes Peak right here, like we're in the foothills of Pikes Peak. The sun sets way earlier than it would if you're not, you know, living around mountains. And
yeah, it's
like
true,
that.
I guess, yeah.
So it's like 4 o'clock in the wintertime.
4:30 maybe.
4:30?
Something like that.
It's getting dark, and that gets a little bit old after a while, I will say.
I think, like, we could do a whole video on how much I hate the time change, but we won't. So the biggest thing that kills me is the cold. I freaking hate the cold weather now. I used to not really mind it that much. I was in the mountains a lot more, climbing, ice climbing in the wintertime, all that stuff. But it's because I've gotten older. I'm in my young 40s now. I don't really like the cold weather that much. Honestly, like when it gets below 20 degrees, I get kind of cranky about it. So that's the biggest thing for me when we talk about winter weather is just the cold. The temperatures definitely drop. February, I think, is usually our coldest month, January, February. And man, it's random. You'll have days where it shoots up into the 60s, but then there'll be days when it's 0 or below 0. So if you don't like winter weather, avoid Colorado.
Avoid it.
If it's your first time checking out our channel, definitely take the time, subscribe, hit the like button, all that stuff. Our channel is all about Colorado Springs, where to eat, work, live, play, whatever it might be. So if you're thinking about coming to Colorado Springs permanently, or maybe you're just gonna take a trip out here, reach out. Like I said, hit us up, call, text, email, comment below. Wanna make sure you guys have all the info if you're thinking about heading this way.
So, little known fact here about Colorado, there is no water. We all survive without any sort of water. That's not true at all.
No, it's not. But if you're from the Midwest, a coastal region maybe, you like to bust out the boat and go jet skiing, not gonna be doing that a whole lot in Colorado.
No.
So Colorado Springs specifically is a high desert. So it's pretty arid for the most part, as we're around all this green vegetation right now. But overall, it's a semi-arid high desert region. So there's not a lot of water naturally in the Colorado Springs area. And for Colorado, most part, it's snowmelt is what we get most of our water from. But the biggest thing, so do we have rivers? Yeah, there's some great rafting in Colorado, but there's no lakes.
No.
Well, there are some, but they're not like what you're thinking of as a lake.
They're like, compared to people like, you know, from Texas or from the Midwest or from a coastal region, like these are ponds, you know?
Exactly.
So I think the biggest one closest to us would be Lake Pueblo. Big reservoir built off of Lake Arkansas. Is it called
Lake Pueblo or just Pueblo Reservoir?
I think it's called Lake Pueblo. I don't know.
Sounds kind of fancy. It's a reservoir, but go ahead.
It's a reservoir built off of the Arkansas River system. And then I think the biggest lake we have in the state is Blue Mesa Reservoir, which probably...
When there's water in it.
When there's water in it, yeah. If you haven't heard, we've had a few drought issues here.
A little droughty lately.
Thanks, California. I think that's the biggest one in the state.
It might be.
And even that's not big compared to like what
And that's from Colorado Springs, that's like about a 3-hour drive, probably 3.5 hours actually to the reservoir. So I think it's a big, I don't want to say it's a misconception, because I think a lot of people, that's a pretty basic thing you find out whenever you're doing research about Colorado.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that I encourage people to do is, man, think through that if water's a really big thing for you. Because and we have people reaching out to us, you know, every day, moving to Colorado Springs, trying to help them out with their housing needs and just get to know the area. And that's a big thing I kind of hit on is, man, how important is water to you? Because a lot of people say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And then they get here and we talk to them a couple months later and they miss the water. You know, they miss, whether they, like I said, coastal region or Midwest, Texas, something like that, where there's a lot of lakes.
Yeah.
People just kind of miss that more than what they thought they were going to.
For
and
sure.
there's just not a lot of options here.
Well, and it also, like, it makes a difference in other, again, maybe seemingly insignificant things, but like watering your lawn every single day is not a thing here. A lot of lawns are xeriscaped.
Yeah, we're getting more towards xeriscaping, yeah.
To kind of cut down on water. I almost got fined this year for watering my lawn too much from the city of Colorado Springs.
Right,
so
yeah.
it's something to be aware of. Like, water is not a prevalent, abundant sort of resource here.
And for me personally, like, I don't really fish. I'm a big outdoors person, love to hunt, but I don't really fish that much at all.
Yeah.
Not a big boat guy. Like, I mean, hey, if I'm on vacation, I'm on a pontoon boat, you know, having a few beers on the lake, that's all fun and good, but it's not something that I miss if I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So for me personally, not really that big of a deal. And for my family, not really that big of a deal. But like I said, just think through it if you're headed this way, because it's not going to be the same. All right, so you guys may have heard that Colorado is a mountainous state and therefore at a higher elevation. Even the plains of Colorado. So Denver, I think a lot of people think Denver's in the mountains. It's not.
It's not.
It's on the plains. You can see the mountains from Denver. That's why we like Colorado Springs better scenery.
Yeah.
But Denver on the plains is the mile-high city, 5,280 feet. So once you start heading west from the Mississippi, it's kind of uphill the whole way, right? So by the time you get to Colorado, you're already, I don't know what it is. I wonder what it is at the Kansas-Colorado line. I bet it's over 3,000 feet.
Yeah.
Maybe even 4,000 feet, I don't know.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to the Front Range, where most people in Colorado live, you're gonna be over 5,000 feet. Colorado Springs, downtown area is about, what, close to 6,100, I think?
60-35.
60-35, kind of sits in a little bit of a dip, actually, kind of at the foot of Pikes Peak, and then it kind of goes up to the east a little bit. And around Colorado Springs goes up to, like I mentioned earlier, I live up north, 7,500 feet. I think the Palmer Divide's about, you know, a little bit more than that, close to 8,000 feet.
Yeah.
So all that to say, altitude, you gotta deal with it.
Yes.
I will tell a quick personal story about my family.
Yes.
So my parents used to come out every single October to hang out with my wife and I. We've got a 6-year-old now, so we'd come out, hang out. But as they've gotten a little bit older, especially my dad, like the altitude just has a huge effect on him. So like he can't really, flying's not an option because that rapid transition from the Midwest, I think they probably live at like 800 feet to almost 8,000 feet doesn't work out. So whenever they come out, they have to drive to kind of make that slow transition to altitude. So altitude and altitude sickness is a real thing.
It is. I actually had my cousin and her 2-year-old come out and visit recently. And we drove up the peak, and I live here, right? I'm
short
used
of breath,
to it, right? I was a little short of breath on the peak the other day and kind of surprised by it. But when you drive up like that quick, like your body doesn't actually have time to acclimate versus if you're hiking a mountain, you can kind of acclimate over time. But it's a real thing. And with the altitude, like there comes some certain weather things. So it's really interesting that here in town, like you mentioned earlier, we get a lot less snow than you guys do up closer to the Palmer Divide.
True.
A lot less like weather events and things like that. Like the other elevated areas of town tend to get more hail than the rest of the city does. It's really dry here with the altitude. I am like constantly having to put on lotion here all the time.
The lotion on, got the ashy elbows going on.
It's true, man. It's true. It's ridiculous. I look like Ashy Larry out here, you know. But the altitude is a real thing, and it's something to be aware of because it does affect everybody differently. Yeah. Pro tip, if you come out here for a visit, lots of water before you get out here, and keep sipping water the entire time that you're out here. Helps you acclimate, helps you avoid altitude sickness, which is no joke, so.
Yeah, I think another thing people need to think about, it's not just where you're gonna live. Maybe you're gonna live along the Front Range, but pretty much everything you're gonna do in Colorado, for the most part, is gonna be to the west at even a higher elevation. So you might be fine when you're living in Colorado Springs at 6,100 feet, but whenever you get up into Woodland Park or past that, you get up into like Buena Vista and you start hiking around in the mountains, next thing you know, you're well over 10,000 feet. And it's a whole different ballgame then. So just, you know, think through that. You know, we typically try to kind of counsel people, if you have some health problems, especially respiratory issues, just be real cognizant of that. And like I said, if you're thinking about moving out this way, come spend some time, hike up in the mountains, or at least drive up in the mountains, you know, kind of get a feel for it, spend a couple days. A lot of people, when they first step off the plane, it's terrible for them, but after they're here for a couple days, it's perfectly fine. So just let yourself acclimate, but take that into serious consideration. Definitely avoid Colorado if you don't like high altitude.
That's right. So reason number 6 to avoid Colorado, if you don't like urban sprawl,
Hate the urban sprawl.
you might want to think about something else, because
What is urban sprawl, Sam?
man, urban sprawl is Colorado Springs. That's actually the definition when you look it up, you know, on Urban Dictionary.
It's Colorado Springs.
It's Colorado Springs, yeah. No, you know, it's what happens as like a city starts to spread out and the population is growing. So this is one of the challenges that we're having with our growth here. We don't build a lot of buildings very tall, right? And there's a good reason for that. We have these amazing Pikes Peak views out here that we don't want to ruin for everyone else.
Makes sense.
So what do you got to do if you're not building buildings tall? You got to spread out, right? And I think Colorado Springs, I mean, it is, I forget exactly what the size is, but it's a pretty monstrous, like,
Geographic area?
yeah, like, it's huge. I mean, just the county of El Paso is the size of Rhode Island, and Colorado Springs probably
Is that right?
dead serious.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah,
I didn't
it's
realize
huge. It's pretty big. I think it's slightly bigger than Rhode Island, which is crazy. And the city of Colorado Springs takes up a good third
A chunk
of it.
of it, maybe?
Yeah.
Something like that?
It's
a lot?
It's pretty big. It spreads out pretty far, you know, and when you get out here, it doesn't look like other cities. Like, I remember driving in for the first time in 2005 when I was a kid, going, man, there's nothing but like a sea of roof lines.
Yeah.
Like, it just seemed like suburban sprawl forever, you know?
Yep. I think that's, so not all of Colorado Springs is like that.
No.
So the east side of Colorado Springs, and I think urban sprawl for me, it typically happens when there's a lot of geographic area available and
Yeah.
it's just cheap land and it's cheaper to build just out than up, like kind of what Sam was saying. So, you know, you've got just a ton, you're basically hitting the eastern plains of Colorado as you go east of Colorado Springs. So as that land has been bought up and developed, it really does. It looks like a sea of houses out there. And the city went through what I would say kind of a bad period of development, probably in the 90s is when I would quantify it the most. But it was, in my opinion, poorly designed communities, a lot of them on the eastern side of town, where they didn't think a lot about recreational infrastructure. So not as many parks, not as much open space, and not as much commercial mixed in as well.
Yeah.
So that's where you just have just seas of houses. Now I will say that the downtown area, west side of Colorado Springs, not like that whatsoever. And the new development on the north side of town, so probably in the last 5 or 6 years, the city's done a lot better job as they approve developments, the city and El Paso County. As they approve developments, they just make sure the developers are responsible for a lot more green space, open space, trails, things like that. Schools, exactly, yeah. And the commercial is better integrated into the residential area, so it just has a more, I guess, kind of normal town feel where it's like, oh, the store's not too far away versus, oh man, I got to drive all the way to get to the store through this neighborhood that just seems like it goes on forever. So urban sprawl, it's definitely, I don't like urban sprawl. I don't think many people do. It's not the best design of a city. We have it in Colorado Springs, so if you don't like it at all, you can't have it around, maybe not the city for you, but just know there's certainly places in Colorado Springs that do not have urban sprawl, but it is one of the downfall of part of our city.
Yeah.
All right, so Colorado, as anyone that's looked at a map knows, is located in the middle of the country. So if you want to drive somewhere, it's not like the Eastern Seaboard where you're in Boston and you're going to cruise down to New York and it's going to take you a half day to get there.
Yeah.
It's a long drive from Colorado, like the front range of Colorado, to pretty much anything other than Colorado.
Yeah.
If you're going to cruise up to Wyoming, like, really not doing much in eastern Wyoming, so by the time you get into the good part of Wyoming, you're probably, 4 or 5 hour drive at least.
Yeah.
Same thing if you're going south, to get down to Santa Fe is about a 4 hour drive. So there's just not a lot to do as far as like other cities or like quick travel to get away other than, kind of the mountainous stuff of Colorado, which is what I personally love. So I'm okay with that. But people that come from the coastal regions where they're used to a lot of big major cities close together within a couple hours of each other, it's just totally different here.
No, absolutely. I think it actually took us, we went to Santa Fe in March for our anniversary. Took us 5 hours to get down there.
Yeah.
And so when you're thinking about a weekend trip, like if you're in, I don't know, LA and you want to go up to San Fran or like wine country or something for like a weekend, it's not, maybe that's a bad example.
It's still probably 6 hours, but still there's a lot of stuff though in that area. Like if you're like in San Diego and you want to go to LA or maybe vice versa or something like that, a couple hours away.
That's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Going down to Santa Fe for like a little weekend getaway for your anniversary, you're driving 10 hours.
Right, yeah.
Plus, because weather, stops, all that sort of stuff. Like, it's just not super close to anything other than Denver, right?
Yeah.
Denver's usually, on a good day, hour 15 minutes to get into like Denver proper and, you know, kind of enjoy all that stuff. The, you know, the football teams, basketball stuff, like all that stuff. It's maybe an hour away, but outside of that, like, there's not a lot that's close by. You gotta hop a plane to go somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. You just know you're just gonna fly everywhere. Like when you go west of Colorado, straight west, I guess probably like Vegas is the next big city that you get to if you're heading straight west, and that's about a 12-hour drive, I think. So yeah, just most travel outside of the state, there's just not those quick road trips you can jump on. So most of the time you're flying somewhere, unless you just have extra time and you don't mind driving for a couple of days to get somewhere. But just travel overall in Colorado, it's not like it is on the coastal regions. I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway, is that if you like to do that kind of traveling, realize when you get to Colorado, it's gonna be different. You're gonna be heading up into the mountains all the time for sure. You're gonna be cruising to Denver, but outside of that, probably gonna jump on an airplane.
That's right. All right, so there you have it. Like we mentioned earlier, Colorado Springs is not all sunshine and rainbows. Now, we love this city. That's why we still live here despite all these things. But these are all really good consideration points if you're considering making that move here. You might want to avoid this city if all those things are going to be big pain points.
Those are all deal breakers for you.
Like if those are all deal breakers, it might not be a good thing. But if you are considering making that move here and this video doesn't scare you away, here's the thing. We're licensed realtors here in this state. We'd love to be able to help you out. So make sure you reach out down below, call, text, email. We got people calling us all the time looking to make that move here. We want to be able to help you out. So don't be afraid to reach out. Make sure you go down in the comments section. If you got any sort of questions, make sure you leave a like, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notified every time we upload another video. And we'll see you on the next one.